All right, welcome back everyone. Today we're going to be looking at TOEFL Speaking Task 5, which is an integrated speaking task, and it's called Summarize Problem. So I'm going to walk you through this task, what it requires, what's involved, a little structure to keep in mind when preparing for this task. And as usual, I'm going to give you a sample and a practice. So what you're going to need for this lesson is a notepad and paper. So hopefully you've come prepared to take notes, and also your smartphones. So if you have a voice recorder application on your smartphone, have that ready. Okay, so what do you have to do with this particular task? So, summarize problem. You must, yes, so you're going to listen to a conversation, and the conversation is going to be between two students, and they're usually going to be discussing a problem related to their university studies, and they're going to discuss two solutions. You'll need to take notes as you listen, and then you're required to summarize the problem that they discussed, as well as the two solutions, and state which solution you would choose to that problem and why. Okay, let's look at the timing of this task. So the listening is between 60 and 90 seconds long. You're going to have 30 seconds to prepare your response after you read the prompt, and then you need to speak for 60 seconds. So let's take a look at the note-taking for this particular task. So your note-taking is going to look something like this, okay? You want to have two columns, main ideas on the left, details on the right. You can just quickly whip that up on your scratch paper with your pencil and paper that's provided to you. Now, there's always going to be, with this task, because it's summarize a problem, there's always going to be a problem. And usually there's going to be two solutions discussed. So what you want to do is identify the problem and then any details related to that. The first solution, and then any details related to that first solution. The second solution, any details related to that. So details could be something like what the opinion of the speakers are about that solution. So for example, one speaker might say, oh, I have a problem with one of my university professors. One solution that could be suggested could be, for example, change class. That's one solution. The details with that solution could be, well, I can't really change classes because it clashes with the rest of my timetable. The second solution could be, for example, drop the class and take it again next semester. But then problems associated with that solution could be, well, it's too late, I've already missed the cutoff date to drop the class. So although there are two solutions provided, change class or drop the class and retake it next semester, there are different details associated with each of those solutions. Then what you have to do is not just state the problem and then the two solutions given, but you also need to stay out of which of those two solutions, or which one would you choose and why. So that's your job in this task. Okay, preparing your response. So let's take a look at an example prompt. Usually they look something like this for this task. Summarize the problem the speakers are discussing, then state which solution you would recommend. Explain the reasons for your recommendation. So to make sure that you actually answer all parts of that prompt, this is a suggested structure that you might want to keep in mind. Explain the problem, state solution 1, state solution 2, say which solution you would choose and why. All right, let's go into the practice now. So listen and take notes. And here is your conversation.
How are you doing with your medieval history? Last time we spoke, you told me you weren't doing too well. Are you doing any better?
Not really. I just can't get the hang of it. There are so many dates and important figures to memorize, and the final exam's in 2 weeks. I'm pretty worried about failing it.
Well, why don't you get a tutor?
You mean in the history building?
Yeah, there are people there who can help you. They're mainly PhD students in history, so they know their stuff. And they'll be able to give you some study tips too, like how to memorize all those dates and people.
I could do that, but I can't really afford a tutor.
Well, you can't really afford to fail either. If you do, you'll have to repeat the subject and pay for it twice. That'll be a lot more money than paying for a tutor. Why don't you go to the history building and ask about it and see how much it costs? I doubt it'll be very expensive. I'm pretty sure they make it affordable to students. Another thing you could do is form a study group with other students from your class. That won't cost you any money, and you'll be able to help each other.
That's an idea, but once I was in a study group and it was a big waste of time. We usually ended up talking about other stuff like what we did over the weekend and never about what we actually were studying for.
For your medieval history class?
No, it was for modern art.
Well, it's a different class and it'll be with different students. I've actually had some pretty good experiences with study groups. Keep it small, like 3 people, so it's manageable. Ask people with strengths in different areas so you can all learn from each other. And if they're serious about studying, it could be a good plan. Think about it.
Now, what's going to happen is you're going to actually see the prompt written on the screen and you're actually going to hear it being read to you as well. So it's going to look something like this. Summarize the problems the speakers are discussing. Then state which solution you would recommend. Explain the reasons for your recommendation. Now, as soon as you hear that prompt, it's going to be your 30 seconds of preparation time is going to begin. So as soon as the speaker finishes reading that prompt to you, your 30 seconds will start, and that's where you're really going to want to use your notes and the structure to prepare your response. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds to do that now. Okay, time's up. Using your notes, you're now going to have 60 seconds to speak your response. So now is the time to get your phone out and open up your voice recorder. And you're going to record your response into your phone so that you can listen to it later and evaluate yourself. Okay, everybody, time starts now. And that's 60 seconds. So how did you go with that one? Hopefully that structure really helped you to identify identify the main ideas and then organize them into a logical sequence in your presentation. Okay, I'm going to now give you a sample response so that you can listen to that and compare it to your own. But before you hear the response, let's take a look at some sample notes. So the main ideas, or the first problem, is the medieval history class. The student has problems with dates and figures, can't memorize, exam in 2 weeks, worried they'll fail. Solution 1 is a tutor. PhD students, history building, study tips, can't afford. Solution 2 is a study group, free, waste of time, never studied, different group, small, 3 people. Okay, so as you can see, when you're taking notes, they don't have to be full sentences, all right? You just want to really grab the key ideas there, the key words. And then when you are giving your presentation, you can expand on those and fill in those keywords with more expanded ideas. You also don't have to worry about being grammatically correct in your notes. No one's going to see them. Also, things like using abbreviations. Instead of writing full words like people, you can save time as you're listening by just writing the consonants of the word, like PPL, and dropping out the vowels. Okay, so that'll help you sort of save time. I've done that here with building, BLDNG. All right, so you don't have lots of time, and you don't want to sort of lose your way because you're too busy writing full words or full sentences. So just keep it brief. Okay, here's my sample structure. So explain the problem, medieval history, can't memorize dates, figures, fail exam. First solution is tutor, PhD students, study tips, know the subject, costs money. So all of these are the details related to this solution. The second solution is the study group. Small group, learn from each other, again, an abbreviation, free, but waste of time. Which solution I would choose and why? Tutor. Pay now, not later, learn more. All right, so these are sort of my main ideas and how I would put them together in a structure. So now let's take a listen to a sample student's response.
The man has a problem with his medieval history class. He has trouble remembering important dates and people. To help him prepare for his upcoming exam, the woman suggests 2 solutions. Firstly, she suggests getting a tutor from the history department. These are PhD students who have good knowledge of the subject. However, the man does not want to pay for a tutor. The second solution the woman offers is for him to form a study group. Although he thinks this could be a good idea, he is worried because the last study group he was in was a waste of time. If I were in the man's position, I would choose to get a private tutor. Although the private tutor is more expensive, I would rather pay for that than have to pay to repeat the subject if I fail it. Also, I think he could learn more from a private tutor than from fellow students. For these reasons, I would choose to use a private tutor.
Okay, how did you think that response was? And how do you think that compared to your own? So, what I'm going to do now is show you the transcript of that response so that you can read it. The man has a problem with his medieval history class. So the first thing I do is state the problem, and then I explain the problem. He has trouble remembering important dates and people. Now I begin my summary of the solutions. To help him prepare for his upcoming exam, the woman suggests 2 solutions. Firstly, so using words like firstly to really sort of make it clear to the speaker which ideas you're talking about. She suggests getting a tutor from the history department. These are PhD students who have good knowledge of the subject. However, the man does not want to pay for a tutor. So here's the first problem with that solution. The second solution, so here's a clear transition to the next idea. The second solution the woman offers for him to form a study group. Although he thinks this could be a good idea, he is worried because the last study group he was in was a waste of time. Okay, so here I've summarized the 2 solutions, but I've also explained their pros and cons. Here I introduce my choice. If I were in the man's position, I would choose to get a private tutor. Now, you always must explain why you've chosen that choice. So here's my explanation. Although the private tutor is more expensive, I would rather pay for that than to have to pay to repeat the subject if I fail it. Also, I think he could learn more from a private tutor than from fellow students. So here I've actually given 2 reasons to support my choice. For these reasons, I would choose to use a private tutor. So here I'm just restating my choice. Okay, any questions about that response? No questions. Okay. Oh, one question. Let's see. Okay, interesting question. Can I suggest another solution, a different one? All right, so you're saying one that hasn't actually been mentioned in the audio. Yeah, that's a really good question. Let's go back to the prompt. Okay, summarize the problems and then state which, oh no, you can't see my screen. Okay, here it is. Summarize the problems, then state which solution you would recommend. So here, the word which, that's referring to the solutions that were discussed in the audio recording. So you need to stick to what you hear. Also, it's a summary. So a summary means just repeating in a slightly different way what you've heard. All right. So it's not asking you to give your opinion based on your experience. It's asking you to state which solutions you would prefer based on what you heard. Now, if you want to bring in your experience, you always can. You can say something like, personally, I would choose to go with a study group. In my experience, study groups have always been helpful. I find that I've learned more from other students, and I find that they're quite supportive, and lots of students have different strengths and weaknesses, therefore they can help each other. So you're actually giving your opinion and you're stating which solution you would choose, and you're explaining your reasons based on personal experience. So that's fine to do as long as you're sticking to what you've actually heard in the audio. So you don't want to sort of go off of that. All right. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the rubric. We do this each time, but it's good for you to sort of really get to know it. So a rubric is basically a set of criteria. And the criteria are what you're scored on. So you're scored on your delivery. So how fluid your speech is and how well paced it is. So how fluid do you think this sample response was that you just heard? Was there too many pauses? Was it too fast, too slow, or did it sound quite natural to you? Also, in terms of delivery, how well was the pronunciation? Was it easy to understand, or was there some difficulty? If you think there was some difficulty in pronunciation, then you might want to give it a 3. But if it was clear and easy to understand despite the accent, you can give it a 4 in delivery. Now, remember guys, it's not about having a perfect accent or not having an accent from your first language. It's about how easy you are to understand. So somebody might have an accent and that's fine, as long as that accent doesn't interfere with their ability to clearly pronounce their words or clearly be understood. In terms of language use, okay, they're looking for complex grammatical structures and effective word choice. Complex grammatical structures means that you're not only speaking in simple sentences all the time, like the student had a problem, the problem was in history class, there are 2 solutions, one solution is a tutor. So although these sentences are grammatically correct, they're not complex. So as you heard the speaker saying things like, although this could be a good option, they can't afford to pay for a tutor. So here is a more sort of complex sentence. And also effective word choice. So your range of grammar and trying to avoid repetition if you can. So if that's all good, you can go ahead and give our sample speaker, a 4 for language use. If you feel like their use of grammar was fairly good, as well as their vocabulary, but there was some inaccuracies, so maybe there were a few little grammar or vocab mistakes, you can go ahead and give them a 3. Topic development. Topic development is related to the structure of your answer. So a 4 in topic development would be a clear progression of ideas. Clear progression of ideas, meaning the speakers discuss a problem and the problem is first idea. Then they introduce some solutions. The first solution is, the second solution is. Finally, I would choose. So here's a clear progression of ideas, right? You're moving clearly from one point to the next point. So if you do that really well, then that would get you a 4 for topic development. To get a 3 in topic development, it means that although you've included all the ideas, some of them are incomplete, meaning you don't give enough details. All right. And there are some unclear connections. So maybe you're not using connecting words effectively enough. So that would be a 3. Okay. So our speaker was between a 3 and a 4. Their speech wasn't difficult to understand. Their range of grammar was not limited. They had quite a range of grammar and vocabulary. And they really included all of the key ideas there. So, any questions about the evaluation? So what you might want to do now is listen to your own recording, compare it to the speaker's response, and also take a look at that evaluation rubric and think about what score you might give yourself. You can also give it to a friend and show them that evaluation rubric and ask them to sort of give you some feedback as well. So that's another idea that you can use with your voice recorded response. Another thing that I highly recommend is to use the practice speaking tasks and the assessments that are on the E2 Language website. So just log in and go to the speaking, integrated speaking, find this particular task, task 5, listen to lots of samples, complete the practice tasks and submit assessment feedback. Because as much as I would love to hear your responses, I can't. So, but if you send them through the website, myself or one of the other assessors will be able to hear your responses and give you some feedback on those. Or you can always use your tutorials on a speaking tutorial, in which case you would cover all of the speaking tasks in 40 minutes with a tutor. Okay, any questions, guys, or comments? No, you're all very quiet? Or you're listening to your responses? Okay. Well, then, if there are no more questions, study well, practice hard, and I will see you next week for the last speaking task, which will be speaking task 6. And then you would have gone through all of the speaking tasks, 1 to 6. And then the following week, we're going to put them all together into one big lesson where I'm going to do a full speaking test with you, combining all 6 tasks. So that'll be not next week, the week after. Until then, take care and I'll see you next time. Bye.